So between the ages of 3 and 4, right at the beginning of turning 3, the first thing I remember was being sick. I couldn't move. My whole body hurt. I had a fever right around 103, 104 for 3 or 4 days. My mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor said I had strep throat, or thought I had strep throat, so they gave me a shot of penicillin and sent me home. My fever stayed up for the next 3 or 4 days, so at a week at this point. So she went back to the doctor, took me back, and he thought I needed extra penicillin. They hadn't given me enough penicillin, so they gave me a second shot of penicillin and started making me take 5 baby aspirin every 4 hours to bring my fever down. It would come down for about 30 minutes and go shoot right back up to 103, 104. So going on 2 weeks, she took me back to the doctor and asked him to release me to Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, because they were the best children's hospital at that time. But you had to have a referral, and he would not release me because he wanted to figure out what was wrong. He thought he could figure it out. So he sent me back home, and my fever stayed so high so long that all the blood vessels in my eyes popped. My eyes turned red, and there was no white, it was just red. My joints, I couldn't move, they swelled up. My fever stayed high, couldn't eat anything, my lips cracked, so they were constantly bleeding. I couldn't even go to the restroom without being in like a warm bath, because my body hurt so bad. And so she took me back and begged him to, because she said that she felt like she was watching me die. And he refused to, sent us back home. So we were just at 2 weeks with a 104-degree fever. And at that point she's a very faithful person, so she had church and my family all praying for me. And a doctor called her back in between a day and 2 days later and said that he had a few minutes, so he picked up a medical journal that he hadn't read yet, and the first article in the medical journal was an article on a disease called Kawasaki's disease, and that I had all the symptoms. So there had only been 9 diagnosed cases in the United States at that point, and he decided to release me to Texas Children's Hospital like she asked originally, because the specialist in the United States for Kawasaki's disease was Dr. Nyhill at Texas Children's Hospital. So he released me. My mom and my dad drove up to Texas Children's Hospital. We were sitting in the waiting room, and the doctor came out and said immediately that I had Kawasaki's disease. He didn't need to check because he could tell from looking at me that I had all the symptoms. But they did the test anyway and confirmed it. And what that does is the extended high fever causes weak spots on your heart and your arteries, and they fill with blood. And what he told my mom then was, what we're dealing with here is it'll fill with blood, and they'll either burst like an aneurysm and kill him, or they'll fill with blood and then they'll become clots, and the clots will break loose and cause a massive heart attack or a stroke. And there's no real cure for it. And they did an EKG. It showed that I had 3 of those, 3 blowouts, that's what they call them, on my heart. And that the only way to do it was to take care of that was they had to keep a 3-year-old child quiet and still, because 10 seconds a day could be any time that it breaks loose and kills me. And there's nothing really they can do about it. The only thing they could do is wait until all the fever was down and all the other stuff was down, and if I survived long enough, they could give me a triple bypass at 3 years old. So she went home and showed the picture to my dad, and she said she was so mad and upset she tore it up and she wouldn't accept it, that it was a real thing. So she had everyone pray, and she prayed all night, and we went back to the hospital the next day because they were going to do a procedure where they run a little line up inside of your leg, up the artery into your heart, so they can see what they're dealing with, how bad the damage is, and what they need to do. And she said she thought something went wrong because she could hear me crying in the back. And when he came out, he said, there's, I don't know how to explain this, but there's nothing there. And not only that, and that's why I always say, like, God doesn't heal halfway, it's 100% all the time, is that I had a heart murmur from birth. coming into the hospital unrelated to it, and he said, I don't even know how to explain it, but his heart's so perfect, there's not even a murmur anymore. It's all gone. And said you could take him home, he never has that. They were gonna put me on prednisone for 6 months if I survived long enough so that I could get the triple bypass, and he said, you don't have to do that, you don't have to do anything, it's perfect. His heart's perfect, you can take him home now. And she said she wasn't certain that God healed until that point. And then she became certain that God heals all the way. So that's it.
A walking miracle.
Miracle, yeah. I was the 10th confirmed case in the United States. I'm in a medical journal. 10th confirmed case.